then it starts to transform your life. Then you start to wake up in the morning and have a different experience of being a human being than you were having before. You wake up into a spiritual experience instead of into a physical experience. You wake up with a recognition that, as you said, dealing with yourself, you wake up to a recognition. Through meditation, you begin to understand the voice in your head is not you. You know, the voice in your head is not you. Through meditation and through understanding the teachings, you come to realize that. And when you come to realize that, you begin to be able to be the awareness of the voice instead of the person who's doing the thinking. And when you become the awareness of the voice, now just the fact that you're attending that way, just the fact that you're paying attention to what's going on in your mind and your emotions in your body from the viewpoint of awareness, has your life become psychotherapeutic. Has your life become psychotherapeutic? You're in psychotherapy all the time when you're paying attention to your experience in such a way where you can see when crazy shows up. And if you're paying attention closely, you'll see crazy shows up a lot, right? It shows up when you're driving your car and you feel like you're on a racetrack and everybody's in your way. It shows up when the people you're close to behave in a way that they shouldn't be behaving and you get upset or angry, right?
The person in front of you at the grocery line.
Yeah, when the person in front of you in the grocery line is...
And then they have no money.
Right. Shows up a lot, right? And even when you're not involved with anything in your life and you're into what we call mind wandering, it's not really mind wandering, no. It is this process in which you're totally consumed with you, thinking about your past, thinking about the future, thinking about what you want, thinking about what you don't want. All of that stuff that is the stuff the personality is doing all the time to keep itself important, to keep itself the focus, to have the world be that which is other than me that I have to deal with, to have other people that be that which is other than me that I have to deal with, to have even me be other than me that I have to deal with. Because if you tell the truth, you're putting up with you as much as you're putting up with everybody else. So what's that mean? It means that there must be some way that you've identified who you are, and you're being that identity that you've identified to be who you are, that you were told was you. It was given a name. You were told that's your body, and you're being that as best you can. But it turns out this identity that you're being, that you were told that you are, is crazy. It's crazy because it expects life to be the way it wants life to be. That's crazy. And yet it's the case, right? It's the case if you pay attention, and meditation gives you the ability to pay attention. If you pay attention, you start noticing that as you go through the day, you're upset a lot. What are you upset about? You're upset every time your experience of what's going on in the world doesn't match the way you think it should be. And then you get upset. And you really believe it should be different, right? Isn't it true, if you're going to be totally honest about who you are in the world, isn't it true that if the world would only change to be the way you think it should be, and if everybody else would just change to be the way you think they should be, and if you would just change to be the way you think you should be, everything be fine, you'd be happy. But that's never going to happen, right? That's never going to happen. And if that's never going to happen, then you have to make a serious investigation and find out, well, if that's never going to happen, does that mean that life sucks and then you die, like they say? Does that mean that you just are sentenced to your life, that you will spend the rest of your life imprisoned in this body that you don't necessarily care for, imprisoned in this mind that's torturing you all day long, imprisoned in this world that doesn't care about you and is threatening you all the time? Is that going to be the rest of your life? Is there anything else possible? Well, fortunately, thousands of years ago, there are people who practice meditation because they wanted to learn and see, is there something I'm missing? Is there anything possible that I don't know about? And they did discover something. Whether we're talking about Jesus Christ, Buddha, or any of the other great spiritual leaders, they all discovered the same thing. And what they discovered is available to you and I at all times. They discovered that what they are is not physical. They discovered that who they are is not the personality that they were taught to be. They discovered that who they are is pure awareness itself. Pure awareness itself. And that pure awareness is there for all of us. And for most of humanity, it's in the background, not getting any attention. That's called ignorance. You're ignoring it, and that's called ignorance. And when you ignore the truth, when you ignore the truth about who you are, and you attempt to live as what you were told you were, your life does not work. It doesn't work. And it's obvious it doesn't work because all you have to do is examine the premise. The premise is that you're God. The premise is that you're right. The premise is everything should be the way you think it should be. That's obviously going to create nothing but suffering. So the condition that human beings live in, for the most part, is called suffering. It's not necessarily intense suffering like, physical pain or very intense emotional suffering, although that happens, right? But the suffering that is being spoken of is called, in ancient language, it's called dukkha. That's in Pali, which is an ancient language that goes back to the East. And this word dukkha means suffering, but it means suffering even in terms of when there's nothing going on, that there's suffering going on if you pay attention, because the suffering that's going on is called dissatisfaction. That your experience of life is not satisfying. That your experience of life is not peaceful. It's not easy. It's not enjoyable. You're not having a good time. Your experience of life is one in which there's stress and pressure and struggle and cycles, patterns that you keep living in day after day after day. And it gets monotonous, and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, and it doesn't seem like there's any value to be had anywhere. And then you watch the news, and you find out the whole world is a mess. And then it's easy to become depressed and, start to give up or just look for ways to distract yourself. Find some good substance relief, prescription or illegal. Find something to give your attention to that will distract you, And so all that becomes the way that people are living their lives, and it doesn't work. They're not satisfied. They end up becoming addicted. And the addictions that are involved in the way people live their lives are subtle, and so a lot of the time you can't see them. The obvious addictions aren't subtle, like heroin addiction, people who are addicted to food, who are suffering from that's doing to their body, people who are addicted to television, people who are addicted to the obvious things, right? But one of the less obvious things that people are addicted to that is the most destructive than any other addiction is thinking. Thinking. You would never imagine that you could be addicted to thinking because you think thinking is just a natural way of being, right? Well, the problem with that is that it's just not true. Thinking is, if you really see, one of the things about these teachings and practices is that we do what we call inquiries. We pay close attention to things that have been happening all the time that we didn't really look too close at. But when you really start to look close at them, you start to see why it doesn't work. You start to look close at the thinking activity, which means the voice in your head, and you start to realize why it doesn't work, because the thinking activity, the thoughts that occur in the mind, are considered to be facts, not thoughts. They're considered to be the truth. Did you ever stop and pay close attention to the thought process that you were involved in and notice that you think your thoughts are the truth? You just automatically do. That's why people get into arguments, because you think your thoughts are the truth. I think my thoughts are the truth. And so I have to straighten you out because you got it all wrong, right? That's what causes conflict and war, right? Well, the reality of it is it's a very big discovery to find out that your thoughts are not the truth. Your thoughts are an interpretation. And your interpretation is an interpretation. And your interpretation is probably not even consistent with the truth. But you don't know that because you're stuck in believing your interpretation is the truth, and so you keep trying to play that game and win. You keep trying to play that hand. You keep trying to play your hand, how you got it figured out. You keep trying to play how you got it figured out and win, and it keeps not working. Keeps not working. And the only thing, as my friend Paul Hederman said, the only value to be gotten from attempting to live your life that way is to discover that it's a failure.
Yes.
That's the only value that's available in trying to live your life as something that you're not, with an understanding that's a delusion, right? The only value is to discover that it's a failure. And having discovered it's a failure, if you can be open to the possibility that there is a way to live that works and that there is a you that is happy and peaceful and satisfied, then you can begin the process of practicing getting out of the condition you're in. Start to engage with the fact that in the ordinary course of events, human beings are not able to act in their own best interest. Human beings are living in a condition of detriment. You're a detriment to yourself. You're a detriment to your body. You're a detriment to the people in your life. And I'm not saying that to say you're evil or you're bad or, you just, no. I'm saying that given the condition that you're in, that's the best you can do. Given the condition that you're in, given that the condition that you're in is one in which you're preoccupied with the good ideas that keep coming up in your mind, and you keep mindlessly following those good ideas, even though it continues not to work. So you may hear what I just said and say, well, that's not true for me. My life works. If you pay close attention, pay close attention and answer the questions, are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you peaceful? Are you living in ease? Are you skillful in the way you're living your life? If those questions, if the answers to those questions aren't yes, all right, then your life is failing. Then your life is failing, because that's the measure of a quality of life, isn't it? That's the measure of a quality of life. And if that's not the case for you and your life is failing, then why wouldn't you look at another alternative? Why wouldn't you start to practice something that can begin to take you out of the condition you're in, so you can start seeing things as they actually are and stop expecting things to be different than that, and start enjoying the way things are, right? Start enjoying the fact that, see, one of the things that's the telltale sign that you've woken up is that you're happy no matter what. Well, why are you happy no matter what? To a lot of people, that would seem stupid to be happy no matter what, right? Well, you're happy no matter what because the happiness you're experiencing is the happiness that's a function of appreciating the fact that you exist. Just that you exist. And that existence that you're experiencing right now is a miracle. It's a miracle. You don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't know what is happening here that has this awareness be here for me. I don't know what it is. It's a mystery. But for most of humanity, that means nothing. It's a miracle that you exist. It's a miracle that you have happened. It's a miracle that you're here and you're experiencing being aware, right? But for most of humanity, that means nothing. I didn't ask to be born. Right? That means nothing. So once you overlook a miracle, how the hell impressed are you going to be with your life? Once you overlook the miracle of your existence itself, right? Obviously, if you overlook that, then you're not in a very good condition to be experiencing much of a quality of life. And if you do experience that, then no matter what happens, right? No matter how the movie goes, you're happy to be here. That's why you're happy. You're just happy to be here. And most human beings experience that, unfortunately, at the last minute, right? When you're about to lose this, then it'll occur to you, oh shit, I've been here all this time, and now I'm about to lose this, and I never appreciated that I was here at all. And it took coming to the end for me to appreciate it. That's the tragedy of most human lives, is that life goes by unlived. Life goes by unlived. The person's life goes by, and they're not living their life because they're in a conversation about it. Not living your life because you're thinking about your life, not living your life, right? You're trying to figure it out instead of being here for it, right? There's nothing to figure out. The purpose of life is obvious. If you live in your head, the purpose of life is this big mysterious question. Oh, what does it all mean, right? The purpose of life to anybody that's awake is absolutely obvious. The purpose of life is to live life. How obvious how can you miss it? How can you miss it? It keeps asking you. Life keeps asking you to live it, doesn't it? It keeps asking you to live it by presenting you with circumstances that cause suffering, so you'll wake up and pay attention to the obvious, which is your life is already successful. Why? because you're here. You're here. It doesn't matter what you do here. The fact that you're here is a miracle, and the fact that you're here makes it possible for you to watch the movie and be in the movie at the same time. And if you wake up and you understand the nature of reality, you will understand eventually, especially if you continue to do these practices, that it is a movie. It is a movie. Right? There's really no difference between this and when you dream at night. When you dream at night, that seems real, doesn't it? You seem to be in the dream, right? You seem to be in the dream. But we know when you wake up that it wasn't real, right? It was all happening in your mind and in your brain, right? This is the same thing, right? Except this one is a longer dream that you come back to over and over again that includes 8 billion other people in your dream. It's the same thing. You can actually come to experience it that way, and when you experience it that way, you understand that it can't hurt you any more than the movie that you go to see in the movie theater can hurt you. It can't hurt you. You think it can hurt you because you think you're a physical body, and if that's true, it can hurt you. You think it can hurt you because you think you're this personality, right, that is small and separate from everything and everybody else. You think that's the case, even though it's not the case, and so you think it can hurt you, and so you're living your life in fear. But when you practice meditation and you wake up and you discover your true nature, which is awareness itself, then you start to realize you can't be hurt. You can be in life. You can experience all of what's happening in life. It won't hurt you. It won't hurt you to be afraid. It won't hurt you to feel emotions. It won't hurt you to feel physical sensations. Nothing will hurt you if you know yourself as awareness. And then you can relax and enjoy yourself, right? Because there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. Then you can be in your life 100%. And experience fully what it means to be in the world as a human being. So that when the time comes for the body to go, right, you've prepared yourself and you have lived a life that you can relax and really rest in peace because you've really lived your life. That's fulfillment. That's fulfillment, right? And not only that, but if you practice meditation and you really cross the bridge, if you practice meditation and you really make the transition where you begin to experience the truth of yourself as this non-physical awareness, right? If you really make that transition, then death is just a change. It's just a change. It's not the end of anything. You know, one of my teachers, when they asked him about death, he said, as far as I can tell, it will be like mild cold. If you wake up to the truth of yourself, you know that the physical body that was born and die is not you. You were here before that, and you'll be here after that. That's the truth. And the thing about that that's important to understand, whether you realize it, whether you start to experience that, and because you do, you feel free, you feel happy, whether you realize it or not, it's still true. It's still true. So you either wake up and experience the truth in which you have freedom and happiness and peace of mind and all that, or you stay asleep and suffer. But the possibility is there all the time. There all the time. Nobody really dies. Nobody really dies. That's why Jesus Christ said, I offer you life everlasting. He's saying, if you practice this and if you wake up and realize who you really are, there is no death. I offer you life everlasting. Life exists in the eternal now, the eternal moment. And if you learn to live in the eternal now, there is no time, there is no death, there is no birth. It's always just now. And I can tell you from experience that if you experience the eternal now, if you learn to be present in the present, right, you just won't care about things like that. You won't care about the future because you know there is no future in the present moment. And since that's the case, you need not give it attention. You need not have concern about it. You can focus everything on what's happening right now and just enjoy yourself. That's how simple it is. That's how simple it is. But when we wake up in the morning and you start to let the voice in your head run the show, you go right to crazy town. And you don't even notice you went there. It's that slippery, it's that sticky. when you leave here today, before you can leave the parking lot, you'll be back in Crazy Town. The voice in your head will take over, and you won't even notice it did, and it'll start saying things to you like, oh, what's for lunch? Oh, I didn't like what happened yesterday. How much gas is in my car? How much money do I have? Am I hungry? That's Crazy Town. That's the voice in your head leading your life. And when the voice in your head is leading your life, you're very limited. You're very limited. You can't do anything that the voice doesn't allow you to do. And as long as that's the case, you're being led around in your life by your nose. And then you complain about it, you see, because, and the thing about complaining about it is, the thing that makes it so insidious and so confusing is you complain about it, you don't like what you're doing, you don't like what you're not doing, you don't like what you're doing, you don't like the choices you make because they're bad a lot of the time, right? And then who's to blame, right? Because if you think you're the voice in your head, then you're to blame, right? Now you're helpless, now you're suffering, and now you're guilty too because you're doing it to yourself. That's the way it appears, right? But the reality of it is that that's not the case at all, because one of the most important discoveries to be had is that you are not the voice in your head. And when you discover that's the case and you choose to do something that's in your best interest and the voice doesn't want to go, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. That's what I told my steps, because I know he thinks he's the voice in his head, and I know that voice is running the show. Because I watch the way he lives his life. It's obvious that voice is running his show because he's up till 3 in the morning playing video games. And then he can't get up until 2 the next afternoon, and then he's complaining about how life doesn't work. Give me a break, right? That's following the voice in your head. So if he attempts to practice meditation and that voice in your head says, oh, you're tired, right? You can't do it now. Oh, I'll do it later. So later comes and, oh, you're too busy, you can't do it now. And he won't even know. He won't even know that that's what's going on. He'll just believe it. He'll just believe it, and then he won't practice, right? And then he'll come back to me and say, oh, I did really good. I did really good. You know, I practiced a couple times. See, the voice in your head will even try and talk you into what you did is okay. It's not okay. If you can't do what you say you're going to do, you don't have any power. Right? If you can't do what you say you're going to do, you don't have any power. Where's the power? Your mind's got the power. Your mind's leading the way. That's why people who succeed in the world come to an understanding that they have to not listen to this voice. They have to make a commitment to what they're going to do, because they know if I do this, it will work. I'll accomplish something. It will be in my best interest, right? Look at all the things that I'm talking about when I say this. Dieting, exercise, right? Spending time every day learning about, your life and yourself, right? Being clear enough about how things work to give instead of being taken all the time, right? Start to live your life that way, and you start to have a life worth living. You start to live your life in a way where instead of the voice determining what you do, you let your heart determine what you do. Right? You let the passion for the truth determine what you do, and you live from here instead of here. Then your life will start being something that you're excited to wake up to every day. Then your life will start being something where instead of being upset because things are not going your way, you start to notice things you never noticed before, like birds singing, like the beauty of the trees around you, like the blue sky. You start noticing those things that have been there all along that you never paid much attention to, and you're happy just because of that, rather than paying attention to the circumstances. And only if things are going the way they should, I can be happy. That's crazy. That's insanity. Right? So if you want to come out of that insanity, you got to start practicing meditation and be committed to that practice, because the way you got this way is by practicing, isn't it? The way you got this way is by practicing every single day, practicing being crazy. So you could fit into the rest of the world, which was crazy, right? Yeah, but now we're talking about you don't have to fit into the rest of the world. You can be uniquely free. You can be uniquely happy. You can be uniquely awake and satisfied. And you don't have to keep playing the crazy games that humanity plays. You can break away from the herd and start living your life as a happy human being that's fulfilled with the opportunity to be alive. That's what this makes available to people. And so when people come in like Johnny did, right? It's like, see, that's an interesting thing. I gave the guy a ride, and the reason he came in here today and the reason he's interested in this is because when we talked in the car, who I was so not who he thought I was. And it blew his mind. Do you know what I mean? You know how you look at people and you got them all figured out? You know who they are, like he had me figured out?
Evaluating.
That's right. That's what the mind does, right? But you're not the mind, so you don't have to worry about judging and evaluating. All you have to do is pay attention and realize that's not you, right? But in the car, we were having a conversation, and he kept looking at me like, did you say that? Because I'm nuts. I say whatever I feel like saying. You know what I mean? I'm not stuck in a rigid way of being. You know what I mean? I don't have a personality. If you wake up, you don't have a personality. You're just awake. That's all. That's all. And whatever's happening, you respond to. You don't know yourself what you're going to do next. That's an exciting life, right? And you can trust your ethical behavior because who you are is morally and ethically correct all the time. You're appropriate all the time. So you don't have to worry about whether you're being appropriate or not. You can relax and enjoy yourself. And that's why he came in here, because he wanted to find, what the hell, who is this guy? What is he doing? And you saw when he was here, he was cracking up, right? Because none of this is what he expected. None of it is what he expected. So continue to practice meditation. Continue to understand. If you are serious about realizing what's possible, then every day you have to learn. Every day you have to study the teachings. Every day you have to practice. And if you do it consistently, day after day after day, then you will be practicing undoing what was done that doesn't work. Reconditioning your mind. Creating a new software program, right? Updating the system, the operating system, so that it's consistent with the truth, instead of trying to run an operating system that has very little to do with the way things actually are. Capiche? All right, see you next time.